Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, good evening. Welcome. Namaste. The Tuesday evening after Christmas. Still, for those who practice this way, in the midst of the 12 days of Christmas, which don't end until January 6th, King's Day. So still, that's why you still see the tree behind us, the little Christmas tree and the nativity scene of the translucent figures on the shrine. They'll remain there till January 6th. So, as you know, on Tuesday evenings, we are studying the life of Holy Mother. And she has gone on pilgrimage to Varanasi. So we'll pick up the text here. There are two Ramakrishna centers in Varanasi adjacent to each other. The Ramakrishna Advaita Ashrama, where monks devote themselves mainly to scriptural study and meditation, and the Ramakrishna Mission Home of Service, where monks conduct a free hospital and dispensary for the poor. Those two still existed in 1999 when I visited, very active, both in the under the leadership of a senior monk, Ananda Maharaj,
because
and it was such a joy to be there. So the Ramakrishna Mission Home of Service, where monks conduct a free hospital and dispensary for the poor. On 10 November, Holy Mother was taken around the hospital in a palanquin, as it was difficult for her to walk through the large hospital compound. It is a large hospital. Swami Achalananda gave her a guided tour to the different hospital wards. She also saw the flower and kitchen gardens and the living quarters of the monastic workers. She then sat on the southern veranda of the hospital with Brahmananda, Shivananda, Turiyananda, and several other monks and devotees. Greatly pleased with the visit, she remarked, Sri Ramakrishna is ever present in this place, and Mother Lakshmi always casts her benign glance upon it. So this is what Holy Mother said. Sri Ramakrishna is ever present in this place, and Mother Lakshmi always casts her benign glance upon it. Holy Mother was told how the work had originally been started by a few young men who were inspired by Swami Vivekananda's exhortation to dedicate their lives to the service of the sick and the needy. They began with only a few pennies. Brahmananda described how Swami Achalananda Swami Satchidananda, Charu, later Swami Shuddhananda, and others had built this institution through their sincere efforts, enthusiasm, and dedication. Moved, the mother said, "The place is so beautiful that I feel like living here." Now, isn't that quite a remark for a mother to make? This place is so beautiful that I feel like living here. After returning to her residence, she sent a small donation of 10 rupees to the hospital. That 10 rupee note has been preserved permanently in a frame in the home of service as the mother's blessing. And it's still there. It was still there in any case in 1999, where Ananda Maharaj very happily showed it to us. By us, I mean I was traveling with a group of other young men. After a while, when M arrived, the members of the home of service talked about how much Holy Mother appreciated the institution. M often said that the Master did not approve of a person performing social service before realizing God. One of the monks said to M, "Mother has just told us that the activities of the home of service are service to the Master himself, and that he is tangibly present here. Now, what do you say?" Swami Brahmananda interjected, "Master Mahashai, have you heard what the mother said? The mother has seen the Master in the home of service. And she mentioned that the activities of the hospital are the Master's work. Now you cannot deny it." M replied with a smile, "How can I deny it anymore?" This was a controversy, by the way, in the beginning. Brahmananda had to go himself to resolve a dispute among the monastics who were living there, because some lived in the Advaita ashrama and some lived in the home of service, and but all were called to do work that benefited the home of service and the sick and the needy. And so a group of young monks had begun to be, I'll just use the word rebellious about this. And so Brahmananda was notified, and the head of the whole operation at the time, I don't remember his name, the monk, said, "I've identified the ringleader. I think if I get rid of him, everything will be okay." And Brahmananda said, "Do nothing until I come." And so Brahmananda traveled there, and he did not interview anyone. He did not talk to the young monks. He did not deliver any lectures on this, that, and the other thing. He simply asked for them all of the young monastics who were living there, all of the monastics, not just the young ones, all of the monastics, to come and meditate with him every morning at 4:30. And he continued this for 10 days to 2 weeks. I don't remember the exact number of days. And by the end of it, there was no dispute anymore. He did not let anyone go, discharge anyone. He did not scold anyone. As always, Brahmananda operated by the power of the Holy Spirit and by love. It was evident to these young men that he loved them because of the way he spoke with them. And the fact that he did not scold or reprimand or discharge anyone. And the whole thing was resolved simply by his presence. The power of love, the power of the divine spirit. So this is, you can see a little of this in M's attitude. M's attitude was, the master said you shouldn't perform social service before you realize God. Well, then he was corrected gently by a young monk, and then more directly by Brahmananda, the president of the order. So resuming the text of the book, every morning during his walk, Brahmananda visited Holy Mother's residence and called for the master's nephew, Budeb, from downstairs. He inquired about the mother's health from Golap Ma. He did not go upstairs to see the mother for fear of being overwhelmed with emotion. One morning she stood in the courtyard to pay, one morning he stood in the courtyard to pay his respects to the mother. Golap Ma said, Rakal, that was his pre-monastic name. Rakal, the mother asks why a devotee prostrates. Rakal, the mother asks why a devotee propitiates Shakti, the divine mother, at the beginning of worship. Brahmananda replied, it is because the key to the knowledge of Brahman is in the divine mother's custody. There is no way to communicate, there is no way to commune with Brahman unless the mother graciously unlocks the door. Now I'm going to repeat that because it gives us a glimpse of why we are humble in the presence of these. So, Mother, Golap Ma, said, Rakal, the mother asks why a devotee propitiates Shakti, the divine mother, at the beginning of worship. Brahmananda replied, it is because the key to the knowledge of Brahman is in the divine mother's custody. There is no way to commune with Brahman unless the mother graciously unlocks the door. Now, what does this mean, unlock the door? The door to the knowledge of Brahman is bolted only from this side. It's not bolted, it's not locked from Brahman's side, so to speak. Mother controls, whether we wish to think it so or not, Mother controls our minds, controls the direction and content of our awareness. This is what the scriptures say in no uncertain terms. So, unless and until the mother directs your awareness and calms your mind sufficiently, you're not able to attain this realization of Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna said this any number of times. It says it in the Chandi. It says it in the Upanishads. At one fall, Pravrajika Gita Prana, who is in charge of the Vivekananda retreat, Ridgely, came and did a long retreat for us. And the retreat was on worship of the Holy Mother, worship of the Divine Mother, I'm sorry, not the Holy Mother, worship of the Divine Mother, especially Kali, which is her special grace. And she said, when the time comes, the Mother may let you pass through the door, commune with Brahman. She said, it may happen one of two ways. She may hold the door open with her foot. And then she laughed this really delightful laugh and said, or she may pull you through the keyhole. In other words, strip off the last of your bodies in a way that may not be so congenial, not be so painless. She may prop the door open with her foot, or, she said with a laugh, or she may pull you through the keyhole. But having reached the other side, apparently no one complains, even if they were pulled through the keyhole. So there's no way to commune with Brahman, Brahmananda said, unless the Mother graciously unlocks the door. Then he sang this song, O mind, remain immersed in meditation on Shankari's feet, remain immersed and escape the suffering of life. All these three worlds are unreal. In vain you roam about them. Meditate on the Divine Mother in your heart. Kamalakanta says, sing the Mother's glory and the world will become a river. The world will become a river of bliss. Paddle slowly in it. While singing, he danced in ecstasy. And finally he rushed out of the house, joyfully roaring, ho, 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 the Mother who was watching, roaring, ho, 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 like Santa Claus. The Mother, who was watching from the veranda of the second floor, was delighted to see his fervor and his dancing. M and a couple of devotees also witnessed the event. So that's the end of that particular portion of this story of the pilgrimage. Before we go on, are there any comments or questions from anyone? Because now the story is going to take a different turn, so to speak.
Yes, Brother Shankara, I have one question.
Yes, Sham.
Was the service idea of Swamiji or some other disciples like Swami Brahmananda were involved?
No, it was Swamiji's idea. He actually developed this idea in its details during his meditation during that 3 days in Kanyakumari, when he was sitting on that, what was at that point an unadorned rock. Now there's a temple there, large, almost an island, but it's really just a big rock at the southern tip of India. And it evolves from the master's remark, which Vivekananda said he would carry this message to the entire world if given the opportunity. And the opportunity did in fact arise for him to do so. Serve Shiva as Jiva. The master was contemplating the idea of compassion. And he said, to himself. He was muttering to himself, but Vivekananda overheard him. Compassion? Compassion? Who are you to have compassion? One should serve Shiva as Jiva. So it is, in other words, it has nothing to do, or it may have to do, but it is not, the attitude one takes is that they are serving Shiva. It's not compassion for the Jiva. It's serving. This is how we get rid of the idea of helping other people. This condescending idea of helping other people. No, we serve Shiva as Jiva. So Swamiji developed this idea. He further developed the details of it when he was here in the United States and wrote these details in letters to Rakal, as he referred to him, Swami Brahmananda, who was president of the order. And so it was Swamiji's initiative. Brahmananda carried out with enthusiasm and complete sense of agreement and cooperation, carried out Swamiji's ideas. He accepted Swamiji's leadership in this way. So it was Swamiji, but it was based in this one instance. Of course, he discussed it with the master later, but when he overheard the master saying, "Compassion? Who are you to have compassion?" speaking to himself. Serve Jiva as Shiva. I said it wrong before. Serve Jiva as Shiva. Serve Jiva as Shiva. Not help. Recognize the divinity in each living creature. As Vivekananda also remarked, where shall we go to find God if not in our own hearts and in every living being? So it was this idea of serving Jiva as Shiva that gave rise to Swamiji's determination that the monks should offer social service. And they got a lot of chaff from about it in the beginning. A lot of people took the same attitude that M did. And they were even scoffed at by the other monastic orders, as the Ramakrishna order monks were scoffed at for doing what they referred to as women's work. Anything else? That was good, Sham. Glad you asked that question.
But I believe Swami Yogananda was against this idea. Is that true?
Swami Yogananda?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe
Swami Yogananda never accepted Swamiji's leadership. Swamiji was not, that's correct, Yogananda. But then Yogananda passed away very early on.
Yeah.
And but Swami Yogananda, Jogin, never accepted Swamiji's leadership in the way that the others did. Not all of them, not all of them did. Even Vedanta was somewhat apart in that sense in accepting Swami Vivekananda's leadership, though he did do as Swamiji asked him to do. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Or anything else from anyone else?
I think Swami Yogananda was close to Swamiji, but there were some differences. Like, that's what my impression was. But I recently read in God Lived With Them book, they both were, they came together. I think they went to Darjeeling when Swami Yogananda was not feeling well, because he passed away in 1899. And So there was some differences, but they had immense love and respect for each other. But that particular perspective about Shiva Bhave Jiva Seva, what Swamiji said, that was not accepted by a couple of monastic. But yeah, I mean, Yogananda was at the he was he was quite verbal about it.
Yes.
That's what I've heard. But Swami Chaitanya does not mention it. But if you start reading books and other articles, you will see that he did oppose a little bit about it.
Yes, he was quite adamantly opposed to this idea. It was, this is bound to happen.
Yeah.
Each of these souls is unique, just as each of us is unique. Their uniqueness is more evident to us because of they become so large. But they're not stamped from a mill. They're not cookie cutter monks.
Mm. Yes.
They have their own vision of universe and our relationship to it. And so thanks for that, Shailesh. Yes, and thanks for bringing it more into focus.
So was Swami Yogananda amongst the minority that were opposed to Swami Vivekananda's leadership? And
Absolutely. There were only a couple that really didn't fully accept Yogananda's leadership.
If I remember, Swami, sorry, Brother Shankara, interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
Swami Premananda actually opposed the idea when he started writing letters. It was early 1890s or mid 90s. Premananda opposed it with aim. But when Swamiji came back in 1898 or 99, I don't know exactly.
99.
When he came back, they had a very good discussion and he completely changed him. And what happened was Swami Premananda, I think, had a direct vision of Thakur because he was very close to Thakur before that also. So he would have actually a lot of visions of Thakur, and Thakur directly told him in Belur Math that go and serve. And then once Swamiji said, what did you do today? And Swami Premananda said, I went into the shrine and did meditation and all. And then Swamiji said, now go and help the fisherman or something, buy the fish, and then he go and help someone else. And that's what exactly he followed all day long that day, Swami Premananda. So he was he completely changed. I think Swamiji completely, and Thakur actually appeared to him and he said, it's what Naren is saying. I think it's in the Chaitananda's book. So, and then M was another one. So these were three people, but I think then Mother directly, I think, when they went to Varanasi in the Sevashram, Mother explained it to M, I think. And so these three people, so I think that they were the only ones. I don't know about Abhedananda, but that's a good point. It may have been that he may have opposed.
No, I don't think Abhedananda opposed the social service aspect. Kali, Swami Abhedananda, did not have the same attitude towards Swami Vivekananda's leadership as the others did. This was true even at Baranagar. Swamiji would say what to do, and Kali did not follow directions.
Brother, this is my thought also, and my personal opinion also is that we all are not fit for doing service as Shiva Bhave Jiva Seva. Some of us path is to do sadhana and move forward. And
yes.
That may have been with Abhedananda. Is that not about agreeing with leadership or anything? Just he was just a yogi, Raja Yogi or Jnani Yogi or just hardcore yogi, Himalayan yogi. Just he came from where he was and then he said, I'm not going to do any of this. All this is Maya. And I think that's what something, and a lot of it.
But then when Swamiji did call him to the United States, to serve here, he did that with a right goodwill. I mean, there's some wonderful stories of the two of them, actually several of them. Turiyananda was there also, and perhaps someone else. I don't remember which one. Maybe it was Premananda. But in any event, they were at Ridgely. Wonderful stories of their companionship and so on. And then Abhedananda stayed back and served here in this country for 22 years. 22 years. And
Yeah.
he was following Swamiji's directive. That's it. Swamiji said, stay here, do the work. And it
Now,
was Abhedananda that came to Atlanta in 1913 and 1914. So we mustn't make too much of the apparent disagreements among these monks, because where would we stand with our understanding? Where would we stand to make that judgment that we know what was we have the written records, we have the interpretations of such as Chaitananda and others, but we have to, if you're going to judge someone, you have to stand above them. For us to stand above these monks and even begin to think that we can judge their actions, it's preposterous. It's just preposterous. We must, at one time, because of his having published How to Know God, which was a reinterpretation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Swami Prabhavananda was accused of having offended Swamiji. Of course, Swamiji was long left the body, but that didn't mean that Prabhavananda wasn't close to him. So when he was accused of this, it absolutely horrified him. He ran to the shrine. This was told to me by his very close assistant, Anandaprana. He ran to the shrine and did not leave until he had Swamiji's assurance that he was not in any way offended. Instead,
wow,
he was delighted.
That's amazing.
And this is told in that book, A Light to the West, which was Pravrajika Brahmaprana took Anandaprana's recollections, which Anandaprana had published privately, and formed them up into that book, A Light to the West. It's available, and it's a really remarkable story of the very close disciples of Swami Prabhavananda, narrating otherwise unknown aspects of his life.
Brother Shankara, in terms of age, chronological age, was Swami Vivekananda elder to most of the monks, or were they all like sort of scattered in ages?
They were of varying ages. Some of them, the elder Gopal was I don't know. He was in his middle age. M was middle aged.
Gopal Maharaj was 5 years older than Thakur, Advaitananda.
Mm-hmm. And so some of them were very young. Vivekananda was, I really don't remember. I'm not good with that kind of data, but it wasn't because of his age. It was because of his mind. I mean, if we take seriously what was said of Swamiji, this is one of the 7 pillars, one of the 7 sages that are the pillars of the universe, the sage Nara. And this is why he had such an opinion of his own mind when he was 16, 17 years old, that when he first came to the master, and the master was able to overwhelm him with a touch, he thought, what? This can't be. No one has a more powerful mind than me. And yet the master did it again the next time he came. And it just absolutely, it threw Narendra for a loop. You read the story of that. He just so finally he was confronted with what he later had to conclude, as we see in Breaker of This World's Chain, Kandana Bhavana, that this was the Lord of the worlds. This was Ishvara. And so, of course, no mind was comparable to his. So I don't think it was a matter of age, dear. I think it was a matter of their regard for his intellect. But it was, as was said before, each one of these is a gem of its own. A very cut this way and that way, faceted this way and that way. If you look at each one of these direct disciples of Thakur, they were the ones who came along. Thakur called them his band of minstrels. They came along to continue the work. As was said, I think just last week, the question was brought up, I think by Sham. The mother's disciples were different than the master's disciples. Yes, the master's disciples were carefully brought along with him, number one, and then trained by him to carry on the work, whether it be an M or a Premananda or Advaitananda. Each of them had their own role. And the mother's disciples, that was not their responsibility. By and large, there were a few that were that had some responsibilities, but nothing like the masters. So that was the difference between the two. The master's disciples were, what a crowd! What a crowd! If you want to, Nalini, Edith Tipple published another book besides Realizing God. She published a book called What the Disciples Said About It. And it's a collection by subject on the subject of, for example, of renunciation or of bliss or whatever. Just name a topic, a spiritual topic. And she very carefully researched everything that could be found. And she was absolutely the mistress of research. She researched everything that could be found about what each of the direct disciples had to say on that. And I encourage you to own a copy of that book. And anytime you want to know anything about a particular aspect of spiritual life, and look not only at what Thakur said, but and what Swamiji said, but also what the other direct disciples had to say about it. Because oftentimes you'll find something that, because of the nature of that direct disciple, it will touch your heart in a way that others do not. For me, that is Shivananda reaches me that way. Mahapurush Maharaj, great soul Maharaj. But I encourage you to get a copy of that book and look at whenever you're curious about a particular aspect of spiritual life. Nalini very beautifully organized a book that'll help you see what the masters, the ones who were responsible for carrying on his work, what they said about it.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got 20 minutes left. Let's plunge on. Unless there's something else that anyone wants to contribute. All right. Visit to Saranath. One day Radu expressed a desire to see Saranath, where Buddha preached his first sermon after attaining nirvana. Situated about 7 miles from Varanasi, it is an important holy place of the Buddhist tradition. At that time, Alberta Montague and her husband George, later the Earl of Sandwich, were staying in a hotel in Varanasi. Alberta was the daughter of Betty Leggett. Oh yes, this is the daughter of yeah. The Leggets were very close to Swamiji. He stayed at their place. Alberta was the daughter of Betty Leggett and the niece of Josephine MacLeod, who was Swamiji's dear friend. Alberta and her husband visited Holy Mother, who inquired about Alberta's mother and aunt, Betty and Josephine, or Tantine as she was affectionately known. Tantine means little aunt. They offered a phaeton for the mother's visit to Saranath, but it did not arrive on time. So the mother left with Radu, Budeb, and others in a hired carriage. When Alberta's phaeton arrived, Swami Brahmananda followed the mother's carriage with 2 assistants and a devotee. Holy Mother toured the holy site and saw the various ruins of ancient monasteries associated with Buddha and his disciples. If you remember, Buddhism took off as a monastic tradition very early on. And there were monks and nuns by the thousands, literally. It was amazing. It was because of the culture and the society in which Buddhism arose and why Buddha taught as he taught. So many people became monastics and became Buddhist monastics that they were deserting the temple life of Varanasi. So the story goes that one of the senior priests from Varanasi went to see the Buddha and excoriated him, gave him this long lecture about how he was destroying society with his teachings. And the Buddha listened to him respectfully. And at the end of the fellow's talk, the fellow said, "Well, what do you say?" And the Buddha simply put his hands together, bowed his head, and said, "Brother, I do not accept your gift." Which you talk about the perfect remark, the perfect response. Brother, I do not accept your gift. Now just hold that to your heart the next time somebody gives you a scolding, particularly when you feel it's unjustified. Whether you say it aloud or not, you can say to yourself, "Brother or sister, I do not accept your gift." And then you don't have to process it. It's simply, "Brother, sister, I do not accept your gift." So, ancient monasteries associated with the Buddha and his disciples. Holy Mother noticed that several European visitors were also visiting the holy site. Referring to them, the Mother remarked, "They built all this in a previous birth." The Mother remarked, "They built all this in a previous birth, and now they have come back again to see what they did centuries ago. They are speechless with wonder, admiring the amazing relics." Now, we can take that 100% seriously. It kind of gives those of us who were born in the West some sense of why perhaps we were drawn to this tradition. Before they returned to Varanasi, Brahmananda asked the mother to travel in the phaeton, but she said that the hired carriage was quite comfortable for her. The Swami insisted, however, so Holy Mother and her party rode in the phaeton, while Swami Brahmananda and his companions took the hired carriage. On the road back to Varanasi, the Swami's driver had problems controlling his horse. The horse became agitated while taking a sharp turn after crossing a bridge, and it pulled the carriage down into a shallow ditch. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, although they were badly jolted. So let me just repeat what was said here. Brahmananda and his companions took the hired carriage. Mother took the phaeton. Brahmananda insisted. On the road back to Varanasi, the Swami, Brahmananda's driver, had problems controlling his horse. The horse became agitated while making a sharp turn after crossing a bridge and pulled the carriage down into a shallow ditch. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, although they were badly jolted. Brahmananda joyfully remarked, "It is fortunate that the mother did not go by this carriage." When the mother heard about Brahmananda's accident, she said, "I was fated for this mishap, but Rakal, by force of it, I was fated for this mishap, but Rakal, by force, as it were, took it on his own shoulders. I had several children with me. Who knows what would have happened to them?" Now, Swami Chaitananda does not, lest we take this too lightly, Chaitananda does not include these incidents in this book, just for the sake of being complete. There's instruction here for us. When something happens and someone wants to insist that we take a different tack than we might have wanted, if you remember the way the story was told, Mother said, "Oh no, I'll take the carriage, I'm comfortable, me and my companion," but Brahmananda insisted. Now we might take umbrage at that. Why are you insisting that I do differently than I wish? Notice the mother acceded to his insistence. She agreed. And so she and those children that were with her avoided a mishap. Chaitananda is very thoughtful in what he includes in this book. It's all meant for our uplift and greater understanding. Okay, there's another subhead before we go on. We have some few minutes left before the hour. Is there anything that anyone would like to say, or any question that they want to ask, or anything that they would like to narrate about their own experience in reading about the mother or other things associated with this? Okay. The subhead is Days in Varanasi. One day, Brahmananda asked his attendant, Shankarananda, to prepare some vegetable chops, fried vegetable patties, for the mother. prepare some vegetable chops, fried vegetable patties for the mother. Accordingly, Shankarananda went to the market and bought fresh mocha, banana flowers and potatoes. He boiled them, added roasted farina and some spices, and shaped them into round patties. After that, he fried the chops, arranged them on a plate, and carried them to the shrine. Holy Mother offered them to the master and ate the prasad during her lunch. The mother and her companions greatly enjoyed the crispy and tasty vegetable chops. I bet they were very, very good. When Golapma praised the dish, Brahmananda said to her, "Golapma, you think that only women know how to cook? Now you see our boys now know cooking better than you." Brahmananda could be saucy. So, Swami Shantananda, an attendant of the mother, recorded the following incidents in his diary. When the mother was at Varanasi, she would perform rituals in her residence. I would pick flowers from the Advaita ashrama and carry fruits and sweets for offering to the master. One day as I was close to her residence, a kite, a kind of bird, it's a raptor, like a falcon or a hawk. One day as I was close to her residence, a kite swooped down and took away some jalepees from my hand. I was depressed and told the mother what had happened. She did not offer the remaining jalepees to the master, nor did she give us any to eat. She said, "It is not good for you to eat this sweet because the kite's claws might carry some impurity." And of course, that's absolutely true. I mean, that same bird probably grabbed and ate some living creatures at other times. Their claws are not pure. So it's not good for you to eat this sweet because the claws might carry some impurity. It is amazing how she loved her children. Sunday, 7 December 1912, in the morning, the mother went by horse carriage to the Dashwamedha Ghat. Is that right? Dashwamedha?
That's Shwamedha.
Dashwamedha. Say it again, please.
That's Dasha Shwamedha.
Dashwamedha Ghat.
Uh-huh.
After having a bath in the Ganges, she visited Vishwanath, Annapurna, and Dundi Ganesha, and then returned to her residence. Tuesday, 9 December 1912. The mother had a bath at the confluence of the Asi and the Ganges and visited the Jagannath temple. Then she went to the, please someone say that, please.
Mochan.
Something.
Mochan. Sankat Mochan.
Sankat Mochan. Then she went to the Sankat Mochan temple. Seeing the large banyan tree nearby, she commented, "This tree is similar to the one in the Panchavati of Dakshineshwar." She touched the tree. She then bowed down to Ramachandra and Mahavir Hanuman. She also visited the Durga Bari and Swami Bhaskarananda's temple. Friday, 12 December 1912. The mother and Radu went to visit Kalbhairav Shiva by palanquin, and a monk, Swami Shantananda, went as her guide. Golap Ma and others went by carriage. Brahmananda arranged for the palanquin so that the mother would not have to walk much. Does everyone recall why mother didn't walk much? It wasn't that she was so frail, although she was getting along in years. She only had another 10 years to live. No, less than that, 8 years to live. But she had rheumatism in her knees and her legs from her time sleeping on that cold stone floor in the Nahabat. So this was an old issue with the mother. So it wasn't that she was being indolent or, it isn't that she didn't want to walk. It was that it was difficult for her. So Brahmananda arranged for the palanquin so that the mother would not have to walk much. The mother sat in the northwest corner of the temple and repeated a mantra for some time. Wouldn't you like to know what that mantra was? And not that it matters, I suppose, but I just wonder what the mother of the universe was saying. Then she visited Trilanga Swami's temple and the Binimadav temple. With the mother's permission, Radhu and Budeb went to the top of the Binimadav tower, and the mother and her disciple waited below. By and by the mother said, "You see, now I am old, so I cannot go to the top. When I came to Varanasi after the master's passing away, I climbed up to the top of this temple. I also climbed to the top of Savitri Hill at Pushkar and Chandi Hill at Hardwar. Afterwards, the mother visited the Divine Mother at Sankata Vireshwar Shiva at Sankata. Then she visited Afterwards, the mother visited the Divine Mother at Sankata Vireshwar Shiva and the Malikarnika cremation ground. She returned to her residence in the evening. Wednesday, 30 December. Notice that there's this period that there's no notes in the Swami's diary. We don't know why, at least I don't know why, but it is the Christmas season. Now, whether that meant anything or not, whether there was some connection with that, the tie to Christ and worship of Christ goes back very deep in the Ramakrishna order. So there may be some connection. In any event, there isn't anything until the very next to the last day of the year. Wednesday, 30 December 1912. It was Holy Mother's birthday. She attended a special worship and homa fire at the Advaita Ashrama, and many devotees paid their respects to her. She then took some prasad and returned to her residence. I'm not sick, it's just allergies. She then took some prasad and returned to her residence. During her stay at Varanasi, the mother would go for a bath in the Ganges almost every other day, and she visited various temples and places such as Batuk, Bhairav. Oh, what is that next word? Anyway, go ahead.
Kamakya
Okay.
and Vijayanath,
Okay. Shankarmat, Rakunda, and so on. As a Raslila party came from Vrindavan. Oh, we would say Rasalila. A Rasalila party came from Vrindavan to give a performance on Krishna's life at the Sankatmochan temple. Dr. Nip, say that name, please.
Ripan Mukhopadhyaya.
Arranged for a performance at Advaita Ashrama so the mother could see it. She watched the Raslila for 3 evenings and was very pleased. She remarked, "I found the representation the same as the real." She then gave a few rupees to those actors to show her appreciation, that was customary, but it was a sweet thing for the mother to do. One day, Holy Mother decided to feed the disciples of the Master at Lakshmi Nivas, her residence. A sumptuous feast was arranged, and Swamis Brahmananda, Shivananda, Turiyananda, Virajananda, and other monks enjoyed the food. They all sat on the ground floor veranda. Now, just stop and think now. This is Swami Brahmananda, the Master's first monastic disciple. 2 of his other most prominent monastic disciples, and Vivekananda, his last monastic disciple. Vivekananda was the last of the young men to come to the Master that became a monk. And so the Master's monastic boys, they were just bookended here with the in between Shivananda and Turiyananda. So Brahmananda, Shivananda, Turiyananda, Vivekananda, and other monks enjoyed the food. They all sat on the ground floor veranda. Yep, I thought so. It's after them. So we'll pick it up there next week, Mother willing. So before we go, are there any comments or questions from anyone?
Just one thing I remember is that the brahmachari who made the veggie patties later on became the president of the order.
Oh, is it so?
Yeah. Swami Shankarananda.
Yes, of course, Shankarananda. Yes. As a matter of fact, he's Swami Sarvadevananda's guru.
Correct. Yeah, I think so. And he was very, very, his presence was felt, Swami Shankarananda. If you see his photograph, he was very spiritual, very elevated soul.
I'm sure. Yes, you don't become president of the Ramakrishna order without fitting that description. So speaking of Swami Sarvadevananda, today we had the memorial, the cremation service and memorial service for my brother Evan, who passed away on December 18th. And Swami Sarvadevananda, of course, as he always does, opens those services, those memorial services, by chanting from the Upanishads and the Gita. And Dr. Majmadar, Bhagarat Majmadar, conducted the cremation ceremony. And so by now, Evan has been cremated and is released from the last attachment to his gross body. So I just wanted those of you who know anything about that to know anything about the my brother and his history here, to know that he is now um, in Holy Mother's lap, so to speak.
Very sorry to know, brother.
Very sorry to hear that, Brother Shankar.
Well, actually, it's a grace. He was suffering so at the last. His body was no longer working, and his mind was no longer working. So he was.
Was he in Atlanta?
Oh yes, yes, he was nearby. Many people, even people not associated with the center, tried to help him, and he was in the hospital very briefly the day before he died. But the hospital, of course, can't keep every homeless person, and so he was released back to the community. And but it was a grace that he was able to pass away and be released from that tormented body and mind. So
I thought it was interesting. The early part of the reading today was talking about the, people working or with the homeless, and saw it as, I can't remember who it was, saw it as serving Sri Ramakrishna.
So it's a relief to me that Evan is no longer imprisoned in that tormented body and mind. And so I'm glad for him. And as Krishna tells us in chapter 2 of the Gita, without any ifs, ands, or buts, he says, this dropping of a garment, of a body, is of not much significance. So, as Sri Krishna says, the wise do not grieve over it. Of course, it's been some time since I really had a sweet and satisfying relationship with Evan because of his deteriorating condition. So that's why I say I'm glad for him that he was able to drop this unpleasantness and move on to something that will doubtless be much more joyous and satisfying. So,
please accept my sincere condolences, brother.
Thank you very, very much. Also, Swami's Atmatatvananda Shiva Maharaj and Swami Atmavidyananda Deva Maharaj, they sang a song that was written many years ago for the choir in Hollywood when Swami Prabhavananda was still alive. The song is One Only One, and it's a beautiful song. And those two Swamis, both of them, particularly Shiva's in his 80s now. I think that Atmavidyananda's at least in his 60s, if not in his early 70s. But they both sang very sweetly after Swami Sarvadevananda's chanting. And then our memorial service reading was done. And then Dr. Majmadar did his beautiful service. So it was very, very sweet, very satisfying. And there were just the three of us there, Dr. Majmadar, Cindy, and myself. Cindy very sweetly arranged for the service to be Zoomed to those people that I believed would be interested. I didn't try to involve the entire congregation because it just didn't seem appropriate. But it was a very sweet and very touching service. Many people I'd say 8 or 9 people after the service spoke in love and praise of Evan. So it was very nice. So that's my little contribution for this evening, just to let those of you know.
I'm sure you are relieved.
I am relieved, dear.
I can understand.
Very much relieved. So, without anything more, Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May you go in Mother's loving and protective embrace. Asatoma Satkamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya, Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from thy lesser truth to thy highest truth. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. May you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be cheerful, and may you have peace of mind. Until tomorrow evening, or until the next time we meet, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Take
night.
care.